we're going to jump to Michael Grafton and Jacob Fumich. Creativity against Glimpse. See who takes it down and takes the first spot in our finals.
All right, game number 1, Jacob Fumich on Glimp. We'll get that fixed for you in just a second. Michael Grafton on Grixis Creativity. The graphic kind of jumping off the side there. Both players here, it looks like they've kept their opening hands. Both just going to kind of develop their mana in the early turns.
Interestingly, that we have Grafton and then Randy Ubing in the other half of the bracket. Those were two of our players that went undefeated throughout the Swiss. So two people still vying to sweep this entire tournament.
If we know what seed they are, I believe we should have the seeding on the table instead of the record, just so we know who gets to choose play and draw. But
Fumich is the 2 seed, Grafton is the 3. The other matchup is Belfado is the 1, and Ubing is the 5. So 1, 2, 3 all win. The only person who pulled the upset was Ubing against Burn, the matchup that we thought was going to be the most relevant.
Yeah. All right. Well, it looks like a start of the best card in the format.
Your game's over.
Best card in the format. Hard Evidence, making a crab and a treasure here on turn number 1. Fumich going to fetch tapped Breeding Pool. Continues to develop. We'll see if he can do anything here on turn number 2.
I very briefly thought in my head, man, maybe Fumich should have some Hard Evidences in his deck. Makes 2 tokens. That seems good for Glimpse. Then I realized that you can't do that with Cascade.
All right, Grafton, land number 2. See if he wants to play another Hard Evidence or hold up 2 mana for some piece of interaction. Maybe even crack the clue to draw a card. Looks like he's got a remand at the ready. But this Glimpse deck, it needs a bunch of raw permanents on the table. It's casting this functional Warp World off these Cascade cards. And the Warp World type effects really need just a lot of raw permanents. And that's why you see, the Evoke Elemental that makes 2 treasures. You see all sorts of things that just put bodies on the table like Season Pyromancer and things like that.
Yeah, so a little bit of a slower version of the deck.
But not vulnerable to graveyard hate, which is extremely important.
And also probably the least reliant on resolving its Cascade cards. Mm-hmm. The Rhino deck can win without resolving Rhinos, but it's a pretty anemic deck if it doesn't. This Glimpse deck actually plays Omnath.
Yeah, and what's really cool, though, is that, so here Fumich, I believe, has a Violent Outburst, but could go end of turn, just, play a Glimpse of Tomorrow and get 3 cards off the top of the deck at random. And if he randomly hits one of those big creatures or big permanents, then could just end the game kind of at instant speed. This could be scary.
Declines to do it while Grafton is tapped down, which makes me think he doesn't want to. Also has an Endurance in hand, so that could just be a reasonable play here.
Yeah, and if that Cavern's Naming Elemental, which I assume it is, the Omnath's going to come down next turn and draw a card as well. Thought seizes the play. Grafton going to target Fumich. In response, we're going to cast the Endurance.
This is an uncounterable Endurance because of that Cavern of Souls, so the Remand in Grafton's hand, not particularly relevant.
Yeah, we have a Shardless Agent, an Omnath, and 3 lands, though. Not that scary, but Omnath is still a very powerful magic card. But Grafton's deck is very decent at kind of playing around normal style interaction.
Yeah. And this is pre-board where Grafton has his Fatal Pushes in, so maybe wants to leave the Omnath because you can Fatal Push it, but no push in hand, so decides the Omnath is the most threatening card. So
now, though, we're going to see probably an attack with a Endurance for 3, and then we're going to see a Shardless Agent cast, and the Glimpse of Tomorrow very likely to get hit with a remand. But Grafton might have other plans. He's going to go ahead and fetch up another Blood Crypt, taking himself down to 9.
Yeah, I just noticed that. But this is the nature of playing these creativity decks with the Dwarven Mind mana base. You got to fetch for all mountains, and you're mainly blue and black, really. You're sort of splashing Indomitable Creativity, and that means getting a lot of Shocklands if you want to curve out early. So 3 fetch Shockseer and a Thoughtseize doing all the damage. You, of course, don't see 2 of the fetch lands because they got put back on the bottom from that Endurance.
Crab blocks. Endurance fails to deal damage to the player. 9 life in the hole for Grafton.
You know what actually disappoints me, though, is that the Crab didn't attack on turn 2.
I thought you were going to say it was me that disappointed you.
No, the Crab should have attacked.
Okay. Counting Guard in the pickup. It's going to make a plant.
It's not about dealing damage. It's about sending a message.
Counting Guard going to make a plant. Shardless Agent going to be cast. That's going to flip over Glimpse of Tomorrow. And Michael Grafton
going to flip over a Remand.
Yeah, that's fair. Whatever it is, it's going to your hand, sir.
Yeah.
Don't care what it is. Could be a Crash Rhinos. Could be anything. It's going to the hand thanks to this remand.
Remand on cascaded into cards has been a thing for many years.
Yeah. All right. Finds it. Glimpse of Tomorrow is cast. All these cards going to go to the bottom. And Grafton going to go ahead and remand on the Glimpse. But the Shardless Agent still comes down. 5 power in play, a 2-turn clock. And Grafton's still under some pressure. Let's see if the remand yields anything nice.
Yeah, he's got a Persist in his hand.
Yep. Prismari Command or something to discard the Archon.
Indulgence, maybe. I'm not sure if he has an Archon. That looks like... Is that a... So there's our Grixis Triome.
Yeah, looks like his hand's really reactive, though. 2 Persist with nothing to discard, a couple remand. So if Fumis just doesn't cast a spell, good chance Grafton just gets attacked, game over.
Yeah.
Hard evidence to peel.
Oh, baby.
That's a nice one.
Shut down that Shardless Agent, draw a card.
Yep. Can find a lot of cards now in the next turn or two.
Notably fetched for 2 Blood Crypts, so doesn't have remand up here.
Brutal.
That is a Wave Sifter, which can be hard cast. I believe it's a 5-mana spell.
Yep, and unlike Mole Drifter, it doesn't draw cards immediately. It does create 2 clue tokens. Yeah. I don't love the block on the Endurance. I like blocking on the Shardless Agent. It's only 1 extra damage, but it saves it to block again next turn.
Yeah, not a fan either. How big is Wave Sifter? Can we bring that one up? Is that like a 3/2?
I believe it is a 3/2 flyer.
Yeah.
It's pretty large and in charge and creates two treasures.
So now we're taking 8 next turn. That's lethal.
Or excuse me, clues.
If you're Michael and you would block the agent, you would have taken 1 more this turn. You'd be at 6, but you could chump block next turn and take 5 and go to 1. You might have just cost yourself a turn.
Blue's Clue is going to get popped. Let's see if we can find a way to put Archon onto the battlefield to stem this bleeding, but we're at 7 life. There's 7 power in play. Can Grafton do anything?
I see Archon, but do we have a way to discard it?
I see a Fatal Push that has no targets. I see 2 remands. I see 2 persists and no discard outlet.
We can Fatal Push that plant token.
Okay, you're right. You're right. I like the way you work in Tardiggity.
Oh.
Gonna bag it up.
Just doesn't have a way to discard this Archon. 2 persists.
The classic reanimator strategy with no way to put the card into the graveyard. It's unfortunate, but it's how it goes. Now, here's a check here. Fumich, if he plays a spell pre-combat, could end up fueling a remand, which ends up allowing something like, a removal spell off the top, something that actually can get Grafton back in the game if he plays a spell. If he doesn't play a spell, this is just a lethal attack. So an attack for 7 here makes a lot of sense, just before you do anything else.
Yeah. And I'm not sure what remand could draw into.
I just assumed there was something 2 mana that could be cast, but Lightning Bolt, Terminate.
The removal spells are Prismari Command and Fatal Push, so...
Okay, well maybe remand's not even good enough, so I guess it just doesn't even matter. Here come the boys. Yeah. 8 damage coming through. Grafton with a completely unplayable hand.
Yeah. 4 mana untapped, 6 cards in hand, scoop them up.
Yeah. Yeah, brutal. Just a extremely reactive hand that did nothing in the face of just mediocre beatdowns.
Well, I would say the big thing was the Cavern on the Endurance, but if he taps out to remand that, then the Glimpse resolves, and you don't know what happens from there. But usually bad things.
Usually bad things. It's not called 4-color play my Endurance. It's called Glimpse of Tomorrow.deck.
So it'll be interesting to see just how many of these counter spells Grafton leaves in. Oh, yeah, we got one more pre-sideboard game.
Yeah, it's okay. One more pre-sideboard game. We are playing best of 5 here. 2 games pre-board, 3 games post-board. Since this is an Invitational Championship, we decided to up the stakes here. First place, $1,500 on the line. Second, $800. Third and fourth here, locked up $450. But you got to imagine these players are vying for a big payout as well as this sweet trophy. Can we get a shot of the sweet trophy real quick before this game number 2 starts? Ross is holding it. Ross wishes it was his.
I do.
I wish it was mine.
I'm kind of thinking of absconding with it.
Yeah, that's a word I don't know what it means. I'm just kidding. I'm very smart. I know what everything means.
And, look how shiny it is.
It's nice looking. It also looks like a dangerous weapon.
Oh, yeah. You could do some damage with
it. That's a cool trophy, though. That's what the players are playing for here. Only 4 left in the field. And we're going to bring you a conclusion here tonight. And we're going to see exactly who takes it down. Right now, I have a feeling it might be Belfado. Belfado, I think, is one of the better players in the room. He's always been a mainstay on the SAG Tour back in the day, and he's already in the top 4 with a cool deck that's, in my opinion, one of the best decks in the format with Living End, and he has a great pivot sideboard with Rhino. So very excited to watch him if he wins this match, play the finals. But right now, we have game number 2 here between Grixis Creativity and the Glimpse of Tomorrow. Glimpse of Tomorrow, not a deck we've seen a whole lot on camera over the last year because there haven't been a lot of live tournaments. It's really just been a Magic Online only deck.
Yeah.
Also insanely complicated in real life when you start doing the combos.
Definitely an easier deck to play online.
Yeah, well, because all the triggers do themselves. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It's easy mode.
So Grafton on a mulligan here puts an Indomitable Creativity on the bottom of his deck. I kind of like that. Looks like he's going to go towards the Reanimator plan because I see an Archon, I see a Persist, and I see a Tainted Indulgence.
Yeah, I don't see a second land.
That's a problem.
Yeah, Hard Evidence, though, could play that. Has a Spell Pierce. Might hold that up, I think.
Yeah, well, declines to play Hard Evidence because I don't think he wants to take a land out of his deck. Oh, fetch his end step.
Or he wants to fetch Triumph, so he has all the colors. So any land off the top that's not Dwarven Mine is good.
Yeah.
Tainted Indulgence can be cast off most 2 mana, but the Dwarven Mine is just a brutal top deck if that's the land he draws.
It's not like this is a Ragavan matchup where you're afraid of that. The Hard Evidence is really mostly valuable for the clue, and the clue's not relevant unless you draw a second land.
Right. All right, fetches the Grixis Triumph, whose name I do not know, and I refuse to learn.
Xander's Home, I believe.
It's not. It's Xander's Lounge.
Lounge, yeah.
See, I do remember,
Same
but
thing.
I didn't remember until he said the word Xander. Draw for the turn. Doesn't seem like he found a second land. Might have to pass the turn here. Looks pretty weak. No second land drop. We've had some mana woes in this top 8 already. Our boy Jordan lost in the top 8 with no lands and a mold of 5 keep on the draw. But
might as well get this crab out here. The Spell Pierce isn't doing anything until Fumich gets to 3 mana.
Are you familiar with crab people?
Yeah, they
look like crabs,
but they talk like people.
Taste like people. Oh wait, wait. Look like crab, talk like people. That's right. Taste like crab, look like people.
That would be better.
Maybe.
Crab is pretty tasty.
Says the vegetarian.
I've had it before. Don't worry.
That's fair. Plant token here.
Second land.
Yeah. Second land from Grafton on turn 3, but turn 3 is still fine. Has Tainted Indulgence.
Come on. Attack with the crab.
There's a plant. The plant can block.
Don't care.
Yeah.
It's about sending a message.
All right. Fumich plays Cavern of Souls. Have to imagine it's going to be on Elemental.
Yeah. Is there an Endurance over there? Because that's going to blow up Grafton's entire plan.
Yeah. And it can be hard cast now, too. We'll have to wait and see. Could also just be something like Violent Outburst.
But that wouldn't do a whole lot with only 4 tokens. There is an Endurance. He's moved it to the front of his hand. So I don't think... discards the Archon. I don't think Grafton is going to be very happy about how this works out for him.
Yeah, you got to go for it, though. You got to start putting some pressure down.
I think with these Endurances in Fumich's deck, you might have to move away from being Reanimator and just be all in on Creativity.
Well, he does have a Creativity in hand, too, so even though this Persist is going to get foiled, and no counterspell back can actually stop it.
Foil is not a modern legal card, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you. You're right. It's not going to get literally foiled, but it's figuratively foiled. He does have an island to discard to it, though. So Persist going to be the cast, targeting the Archon, and you have to imagine this Endurance is going to come down, and it's protected thanks to that Cavern of Souls. Graveyard eaten up. Persist gets countered. Cards go on the bottom. Next turn, though, Grafton has the 4th land. If he has another red source, he can go Creativity for 1 and get Archon down. That'll only eat the plant, but it starts churning. And that's what he needs. He needs something.
Then you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to a Cascade. There's a Wave Sifter in Fumich's hand. He could evoke here, get a couple clues. He's continuing to make land drops. Once that Glimpse goes off for 6, 7, 8, it usually doesn't end well. You hit en masse and lands, you generate more mana, you often Cascade again.
Yeah. Looks like Grafton does have Spell Pierce in hand, one of those full art ones. Gonna chump block with the crab. Like protecting the life total here, not so bad.
You do want things for your Creativity, though, and you have Life to spare. That seems a little early.
Perhaps.
Plus, the crab is great moral support.
All right, we're going to shock here for this Blood Crit more than likely, and then go for the Creativity on 1. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, the Spell Pierce isn't great if Fumich just has a 5th land, so
Right.
yeah.
There we go.
Creativity.
Targets the Blues Clues. That's only going to get Archon out of the deck, much like the Cascade decks always find their card. Creativity in this deck always finds its card. And there are multiple copies of Archon in the deck, so even if he draws some, it's not going to be that backbreaking in general.
Yeah, and this will reduce the amount of permanence that Fumich has, sack a creature, so if he does have the Cascade and a Glimpse, it's not quite as powerful.
Yeah, and that's also going to make him discard a card. So if he has just a fair draw, then this is going to be somewhat problematic, but it's not the end of the world. This deck has a lot of fodder, has a lot of ways to do little micro advantages.
I see either a Wave Sifter or Risen. I think Wave Sifter and Risen Reef in Fumich's hand. I'm not curious as to why he just didn't cast anything last turn. Does he have a Violent Outburst he wants to cast?
I don't know. Maybe he has something to cast or EOT. Maybe he's just going to go EOT Violent Outburst.
But
maybe
then you would just. I think I would then do that.
That's another Endurance. That was probably what he's afraid of. Another Reanimate thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Unfortunate the Creativity was the cast for him.
Playing a little conservatively here, but that's going to be fine. If he has a 5th land, he discarded the Wave Sifter.
Well, I think he's just going to go for his power turn here, and the Wave Sifter could have been good.
It evokes for 2, right? Can we bring that card up?
Yeah, it convokes for blue-green, but he might not even have a 5th land. So he might have just been like, oh, this is too much to risk. And he might not even have anything. Looks like his hand is Mirror Breaker. Interesting attack.
Yeah.
I think he has Fury, though. Might can go Risen Reef Fury and actually kill the Archon.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Because I think he has a spare Glimpse in his hand that's just kind of rotting there.
Okay. That's cool.
No, he has. It's a
Fable.
Yeah, Fable. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna hard cast with the Forest off the cavern, so no interaction here. Archon down. Now Grafton has persist potential backup though. We'll see.
So Fumich is really playing this matchup straight up. He's like, he doesn't have any Cascade things going on. He's just maximizing the value of his individual cards, and it's going surprisingly well.
Yeah, and he's got a 2-turn clock, so if he just attacks twice and Grafton doesn't put up any pressure, the game's over. The Spell Pierces are bad. There's a Silken's on for chump block duty. You could potentially do that. You can also fetch up Dwarven Mine and make some blockers here. So
yeah,
a lot of defensive measures coming online.
The really awkward thing is having all the counter spells, and I think Fumich might have anticipated that and just said, you know what, I'm just going to play my cards.
Yeah.
And this is the benefit of the Glimpse deck relative to the other Cascaders. Like, it's harder to set up your big Cascade turns because you need a bunch of permanents on the battlefield for Glimpse to be powerful. But you do have some individually powerful cards similar to Team of Rhinos.
Yeah, you're just a normal ass deck.
Yeah.
Just has this Cascade engine in there.
Yeah. So you kind of have the best of both worlds, right? You have this powerful over the top Cascade engine that Living End has, but you also have the Endurance, Fury, Omnath, just kind of fair card thing that similar to what Team of Rhinos has.
All right, the follow-up here is going to be an Omnath. The big boy we see in all these 4-color decks. This one's going to be cast with a Cavern of Souls, can't be countered, finds a fetch land. That's going to generate some life. A fetch is going to generate some mana if he has anything to do. I know he's got a Fable the Mirror Breaker. You have to imagine that one's at least getting cast, and it's definitely not getting countered by a Spell Pierce thanks to the extra mana from Omnath.
Yeah, up to now 6 mana available with the 2 untapped lands and the Omnath trigger, so...
We'll make sure life totals are correct. Both players just confirming. Some life was gained from Omnath, but then there was a fetch land, maybe a missed fetch land earlier.
Yeah. So we could play Fable into Risen Reef here and dodge the Spell Pierce entirely and almost empty our hand.
Yeah. We'll have 1 card left or an extra land off the Risen Reef, and we'll have the Mountain. So it's potential that the Fable the Mirror Breaker also gets to pitch a dead card next turn and turn it into juice. Risen Reef first, though. Maybe a missequence. This might end up letting him get pummeled by the Spell Pierce, but still plenty of pressure on the table. Not that big of a deal. I love that the Glimpse of Tomorrow deck in this matchup has just looked exactly like the 4-color Elemental deck, but just happens to have this Cascade engine that just obliterates some opponents,
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And there's 2 lands and something else left in Grafton's hand that I don't think is very relevant. It's a blue card.
Yeah, I actually have no idea what card it is, too. I've been trying to figure it out for like 3 turns, but he hasn't cast it, and he's had 1 million mana, so it can't be anything proactive.
Looks like only a couple lands left for Fumich. He just drew a Cavern for turns. He's got Cavern Mountain left over. Would have been nice to have that Fable, but...
All right, this is a lethal attack with the Risen Reef. The Risen Reef does represent the 8th point if a chump block on the double striker happens. So this looks like a lethal attack, and Grafton picks it up. Curious what that blue card was. We're going to probably take a look at the deck list and try to figure it out. But regardless, that's 2-0 in favor of Jacob Fumich. This is a best of 5, though. We're going to be moving to the sideboard after this game, and we're going to be taking a look along with Ross Merriam as he gives us a breakdown of what he thinks is going to be coming in from both sides. Well, you're a creativity master, right? So why don't you start with the creativity deck, and then we'll figure out where to go from there.
That had to have been a Spell Piercer or a Remand, by the way.
It wasn't a Remand because he had all old border Remands, and it wasn't a Spell Pierce. Is there
it could have been a Hard Evidence, but he would have cast that one.
Chat thinks it's a Sketchbook Archon.
Sketchbook
Archon?
Archon.
It was an Archon. We thought it was a blue card. Yeah, that could make sense.
Can you look up the art for the Sketchbook Archon? Because if it looked very blue to me.
Well, looking at Grafton's sideboard, we got a couple Flusterstorms that are good against the Cascade part of the deck, but as we saw, too many counterspells was not very good because of the proactive part of the deck. So Flusterstorm might replace Spell Pierce, but that's a marginal upgrade. We've got Unmoored Ego. Maybe you want to bring that in?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the problem, what do you, like, a Glimpse was never cast there, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what do you even name with Unmoored Ego? And to me, that's one of the problems with cards like Unmoored Ego, especially in decks that have such a diverse, game plan. And one single card doesn't really affect them. We saw earlier in the day, someone cast one of those types of cards and stripped all the Tron lands out of their deck, and that was really powerful. But how do you attack this Elementals deck that just so happens to have a bunch of 3-mana wheels in them,
Yeah. And there's not really more removal that would be better than Fatal Push. It's 2 Alpine Moon, an Ashiok, 2 Collective Brutality, the 2 Flusters, 2 Disputes, 2 the Egos, and 4 Leyline of the Void. So you're really just potentially bringing in more disruption for the part of the deck that hasn't shown up, while you're losing to the other part of the deck that you don't really have anything for. So will be interesting to see how Grafton sideboards and how he approaches it, because you've also got to deal with those endurances, stopping your reanimator part of the plan. You don't really have a great way to cast creativity with mana up to stop the glimpse part of their plan. Looks like a lot of issues that he doesn't really have answers to, because honestly, this is not a highly played deck. So Fumich, coming in with a, off the wall deck and it really paying off, people just don't seem prepared.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a hot knife through butter looking so far. He's in the top 4, hasn't lost very much today, and cruising looks like to the finals. If he can take one of the next 3 games, he's up 2-0 in our best of 5. And our Grafton, our Grixis creativity player, is going to have to get pretty creative with his sideboard strategy.
On Fumich's side, I see 2 Force Negations in the sideboard. Really like those. It lets you tap out for some of these creatures while stopping the combo aspect of the creativity deck. 3 Foundation Breaker, not really relevant. 3 Mystical Dispute, doesn't seem great, but you kind of like win a counter war if you want to do that.
There's a lot of Cavern Souls in the other deck apparently, so I don't know how good that's going to be.
These are disputes from Fumich's deck.
Sure.
Grafton's counter spells could be good. 4 Subtlety doesn't seem great. 2 Teferi Time Raveler, that could help against his counter spells. Can also just bounce tokens.
Can also just bounce the Archon after it gets reanimated. I kind of love the idea of a Teferi out of the sideboard.
And then I see 1 Twin Shot Sniper. Anybody want to tell me what that one does?
So it channels for green and 1 to deal 2 damage to any target, and it's like a 4-mana 4/2 or 3/2 that deals 2 when it comes in.
Sure, it's green one or red one?
Red one. Sorry. Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah, I've seen people play that in Living End. That's what I thought it might be, but
I think that's the card. It's like a Bone Crusher that goes to the grave. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, well, that one doesn't seem great either.
Well, okay, but in general, not in the matchup. But in general, it's a cool card
in the match. So I like the Force Negations. I like the Teferis. Maybe the Disputes, but it doesn't seem like you really need them.
Yeah. All right, we're on underway here in game number 3 of our semifinal match between Michael Grafton's Grixis Creativity, Jacob Fumich's Glimpse of Tomorrow. Grafton leads with fetch, passes. Fumich plays a fetch. Grafton goes and gets a triumph. Turn number 2. What you got?
We do. Is that Dispute coming in from Grafton?
Maybe. I see a remand in hand for sure.
There are a bunch of slow blue cards, Wave Sifter and Risen Reef and Omnath. So Dispute, despite not being good against the Cascade part of the deck, that card actually does seem good against the creature part, because a lot of the threats are blue.
In a pinch, you can also just spend 3 mana and hard counter something like the Glimpse of Tomorrow or an Endurance, as long as there's no Cavern Souls running around.
Yeah. So I overlooked that one when we were going through sideboards, but on second thought, good on Grafton for bringing that one in.
Yeah. Also, the Teferi's out of the sideboard could be backbreaking, so the Mystical Disputes are pretty great at stopping those too.
Yeah.
All right, third land, chooses not to play Hard Evidence, has a remand on backup, so maybe has better, more powerful plans over the next few turns. Maybe you're looking to go Prismari Command or something, you know?
Yeah, and maybe wants to leave up the Dispute as well as the remand. I don't think you're likely to see 2 spells out of Fumich, given that they're a Cascade deck. So I think that I would have taken the chance to get the crab down, but not going to be super punishing to find a spare mana to cast it later. Is going to miss some attacks with the crab, though. Nobody has attacked with a crab yet.
Well, maybe next time you should try qualifying for the event so that you can attack with a crab, Ross.
Okay, I will.
All right. No, you got to do commentary with me. This is too much fun.
Just can't make you happy, can I, Todd?
No, you can. Every day. For the rest of our lives. You just say, yes! Will you marry me, Ross? I know I'm already married.
Yeah.
We can move to Utah. It's fine.
Jesus, I can go to so many jazz games.
This is the part of the broadcast where we're a little delirious because we've been on live on air for over 8 hours.
Yeah,
but
our Emeralds are very cheap.
all right, here we go. Tainted Indulgence, discarding a Persist. Not the greatest discard. Looking to discard Archon, but
If you don't find the Archon, then yeah, just get the Persist out of here.
yeah. Looks like we have fetch land. We could go for fetch into the Dwarven Mine, into the Creativity for 1, or just hard cast or hard play the Dwarven Mine.
I kind of like waiting one turn. Have your Dispute up. Grafton says, nah, let's have another Creativity here.
Yeah,
So
just wants to swing on them.
it's like this Creativity is going to meet a Force of Negation, but honestly, that's not a huge problem because you're not worried about a combo kill. There's no, there's only the 3 lands.
You're also not worried about spot removal. And most of the time, you don't want to do this because you're vulnerable to things like Lightning Bolt and Fatal Push. But in this matchup, it's all sorcery speed stuff or instant speed counter magic.
Yeah. So that with a second Creativity, I think this is a fine play, actually.
Yeah. And next turn can go Creativity plus Mystical Dispute. So it has to be some other means of interaction.
Yeah. I'm a little worried about them just, setting up and casting some things that make tokens, like a Fable here, or... Well, that's as punishing as possible.
Well, I'm pretty sure Grafton has a fetch land in hand, so I think he can still go for it.
Yeah, but now you won't have any counters up,
But it has to be a second Force of Negation plus pitching a blue card. Unless there's a Ricochet trap, which I don't believe is in the sideboard.
And the Archon trigger will actually deal with the Teferi.
Exactly.
So this is actually fine. So we'll get another Dwarven Mine, we'll make an Archon, deal with the Teferi, have a Dispute up. But you're still not that worried about Glimpse. But if they go Omnath, you have a counterspell for it. If they go Wave Sifter, you have a counterspell for it.
Now, Grafton also has the potential to play a Hard Evidence here as well, or hold up the Mystical Dispute. I wonder if they're going to go for the hold up or going to play it out. I think they'll probably hold up the Dispute.
Yeah.
It's not live here to protect from a Force Negation thanks to the static on Teferi, but once this resolves, which I believe it's going to, we're going to go get the Archon of Cruelty, and that's going to swallow up Teferi whole and draw a card.
I know the Hard Evidence is the best card ever printed, but now is not the time for it.
Yeah.
Now, if we had played it on turn 3...
All right, well, there's the Storybook Archon. Eats the Teferi. That's going to force a discard. Fumich discards a Glimpse of Tomorrow, and we get a draw, and we get a drain for 3. Just a novel worth of text on this 8-drop.
Yeah, lots of value. It almost feels like a mini Cruel Ultimatum.
Yeah, exactly. All the modes feel very Cruel Ultimatum-esque. Now, one thing that's cool about Archon is it was printed in MH2, but notably it is not legendary. Legendary cards tend to be the focal point for Reanimator strategies, but thanks to cards like Persist, we've been looking for more things that actually don't persist.
Oh
wow.
You got to dispute this. You got to dispute this.
It has a Cavern on it. It's a vote off Cavern is still cast. So we're going to get 2 treasures. We're also going to get to, with the trigger on the stack, we're going to be able to cast Violent Outburst, and we're going to get to spin the wheel for a ton of value.
Yeah, make sure you do this with the Evoke trigger on the stack because of Violent Outburst being an instant. Yep, points it out. Fumich knows how his deck works. And this is going to be an 8-point glimpse.
And we finally get to see a glimpse of tomorrow. It's been 3 games. Fumich 2-0 right now. And that mystical dispute looks embarrassing.
This is basically the nightmare. He had to have the cavern to go with it. Otherwise, you could just dispute the wave sifter. And if they tap for 3, you can untap and have remand up. So this is the actual nightmare, was cavern, wave sifter, violent outburst specifically, because it gets an extra permanent on the battlefield. So,
all right, so here we go. We're going to spin the wheel for, looks like 8 permanents. 8 permanents are going to go to, I believe how it works is they go to the bottom, and then you just flip card
no,
on
you,
top.
you shuffle everything in, I think.
All right, shuffle everything in.
Oh, yeah. So Grafton might be kicking himself here, thinking, I should have just left up the remand, but that's a narrow set of cards that Fumich needed.
Also, going for your Archon, I think, is just juicy, you know?
Yeah, and
there were no permanents on the table other than lands.
Yeah. No, that was the absolute nightmare, was Cavern of Souls, Wave Sifter, Violent Outburst.
Yeah, and here it comes. 8 cards off the top. One of them's a land. This one's a mystical dispute. That one is burned.
Okay.
We got Endurance. That's 3. Cavern is 4. Gonna name Elementals, probably. Omnath's 5. And this is, I think, all entering at the same time, so Omnath's gonna go ballistic. Multiple cards drawn, tons of mana generated.
Do we get 6 Omnath triggers?
I'm pretty sure we get all the Omnath triggers. I think all of them see everything.
That's my instinct as well.
All right, so we're going to get 2 draws. I believe we get 10 mana, 8 damage dealt to face, and then we just get all these lands untapped, and if we have something cool drawn, we can just do it all again.
Yeah, so now we just have 11 mana. Oh, targeting yourself with the Endurance, okay.
Okay. All right, so that gets shuffled. Those go on the bottom.
Where do the 2 non-permanents with the Glimpse go?
I don't know.
So we got to finish resolving the Glimpse before the Endurance trigger happens.
This is
so the rest go on the bottom in a random order. So those 2 cards should go on the bottom before the Endurance cards.
Okay.
Because the trigger can't go on the stack until the Glimpse is done resolving.
Well, we know what card just got put onto the bottom, so we'll figure it out in just a second, and we'll make sure that those other 2 cards, the Mystical Dispute and the Violent Outburst, they need to go on top of the Endurance cards, but they're so far down. A fetch line's about to happen probably at some point in the next turn cycle, so
yeah.
This is just a hard card to resolve in real life. So, we're just going to give them the benefit of the doubt. We're going to try to fix the Violent Outburst and the Dispute, put them on the bottom.
The triggers for all of this don't go on the stack until the Glimpse is done resolving.
Yeah.
That is how the rules of Magic work. And we have another judge call.
Well, I think maybe they're also asking about the Omnaths, because I'm fairly confident that both Omnaths see all 3 lands.
Yeah, they should see them all.
Yep. And then we just have a ton of stuff to do after that. 2 Omnath draws are on the stack. We have another Shardless Agent, so we can go again.
Yeah, not a ton of mana permanents, though.
No, but we have a ton of mana floating, so we can play basically our entire hand.
So they've got,
and we still have 2 draws.
Yeah, you've got an Endurance as another permanent. That gets us to 6, and then 2 draws could potentially get back up to 8 or more for another go. And we've also dealt 8 damage.
Okay, yeah, so Violent Outburst still on the stack.
Yeah, the original Cascaded Violent Outburst is also still on the stack. And the triggers from this Glimpse of Tomorrow will resolve before that Violent Outburst does.
All right, so just an embarrassment of triggers. Just a ton of nonsense happening. Fumich playing Glimpse of Tomorrow. I know my buddy Zach Hicks from back in Alabama is having a field day right now because he is an OG lover of Warp World. And so all these Glimpse of Tomorrows, I'm sure, are giving him the tickles. This is looking pretty strong here from Fumich's side. This Glimpse of Tomorrow has been pretty good.
Your buddy's not the only one getting the tickles.
They have judge questions on both sides, so
okay.
They're trying to.
All right, that's okay. We'll figure it out in just a second. Ross and I will just talk about nothing.
Yeah, okay.
All right, looks like we have solved the issues, and now we have 800 triggers on the stack from Omnath. Draws, mana. Looks like the draws have finished resolving.
We found a Wave Sifter, which is a nice one.
My guess is 10 mana floating.
Well, I think just 8 mana from the Omnaths, and then we got the 3 lands on tap.
Oh, right. They only float 4. I always confuse it as being 5 because the fetch land always comes in on tap for 5 and cast those 5-color or 5-drop elementals.
So I think you're going to see life totals kind of swap. I don't know if they've accounted for the stomping ground shock. So we might see 16 for Fumich and 10 for Grafton.
Something like that. The Ivory Omnath trigger the first time is 4 life. So
yeah. So the at best for Fumich, it'll reverse entirely and be 18-10 the other direction. But I'm not. Stomping ground might bring him down another 2.
yeah. Well, I thought we had gotten everything situated, but maybe we got the deck, and now it's just a question of how many triggers and what triggers are actually on the stack. A very, very messy situation here that we're trying to make sure we get fixed in the most correct way possible, because it's not about doing it fast. It's about doing it right. And Magic is an extremely complicated game engine with literally 30,000 different game pieces.
Yeah. And also, Omnath was not ever designed to have it trigger multiple times at the same time.
Are we sure that Omnath was ever really even designed?
Omnath has always existed.
They just continued.
Exist.
He started off as just a little guy, and they added an ability, and then they added a color, and then they added another ability, and added another color, and then added another ability, and then added another color. Started off as a mono green guy, now it's a 4-color guy. What the heck? All right, we have an update from Taryn here. What's going on? You've been talking to the judge, right?
Yeah. So the ruling is they're unable to fully determine what was in the graveyard and got tucked in, and you're not allowed to back up through like coverage and check or anything like that. That's a big no-no.
Yep.
And so it's just going to be a game rule violation. They know that Outburst should be in the graveyard, so they're pulling one out and putting it in the graveyard. Jacob has to shuffle anyways.
Yep,
because he's fetching. So
we get
all the cards are going on the bottom and they're getting shuffled. So
Okay.
it's
Cool.
like they're just kind of shortcutting to
And
that.
Perfect.
Have we had, and we have had the life totals changed, so both Omnaths triggered 3 times.
Yep.
So we should have white, white, blue, blue, red, red, green, green in pool for Jacob Fumich right now.
Yeah, which will allow him to, looks like, go off again, because he can play another Sifter here and then a Shardless Agent into another Glimpse of Tomorrow, and this is maybe going to start a chain of events that Grafton cannot handle.
And it has enough mana here to pay for the dispute and still cast the Shardless Agent. So, has 3 mana floating off the Wave Sifter from the Omnath, can use that 3 mana for the dispute, and then colorless off Cavern, green off Stomping Ground, and the island will play another Shardless Agent. And this is just going to be another glimpse for 8.
Yeah, but you have to take into consideration that 2 cards were drawn, and the exact same number of permanents end up on the battlefield for effectively nothing. And we're just
he's
doing it again.
Gained 8 life and dealt 8 damage to his opponent,
Right.
and now he's going to get a 2/2 at the end of this glimpse.
Yep. So the Shardless Agent's on the stack. We're going to go for another Glimpse, and this is going to take away the 3 lands, the 3 creatures, and the 2 clue tokens, and that's going to get 8 more looks for another big battlefield. We're going to do it again.
That's an 8-ball.
And that's one of the coolest things about this Glimpse of Tomorrow deck is that it's so likely to go off again just because of the way that it's constructed. So we're going to shuffle in all 8 permanents, make sure they're all facing the right way.
Are they all facing the same way?
I don't know. And I'll never know.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to ask again. It's not my deck. I'm not shuffling it. I don't care. Too much going on. We got 8 cards coming off the top. We'll see exactly what Fumich can do. Let's see if he gets 2 more Omnaths and just kills his opponent in the next couple of sequences.
And the Shardless Agent is still on the stack.
That's true. All right. Dead Vaughn Outburst. Live to Fairy. That's 1.
That's a really good one that bounces the Archon.
All right. So this Force Negation, that's 3 cards total. Mystical
3
Defeat 4.
bricks.
5 for land, 6 for land. We got 2 more coming. An Omnath is 7 and a fetch land to boot. Endurance is 8.
Endurance. So we're going to be able to generate up to 7 more mana, or 6 more mana.
Yep. This Omnath has seen no landfall triggers so far, so it's going to see both of these lands and then the fetch land itself. These cards are going to go onto the bottom from the Glimpse. That's part of the resolution, or shuffled back in. It's unclear.
And we're going to be able to bounce. They go on the bottom.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
So
we can
get those on
bounce
the
our
bottom.
Yep.
Now our Glimpse should go to the graveyard. He already put it there. That's technically the last thing that happens as part of a spell resolving is if it's an instant or sorcery, it goes to the graveyard.
Yep. And now the Endurance is on the stack, and he's going to target himself again, I think. And we got 4 more life
Yeah.
and 4 mana. The Teferi's in play. It's going to get the 4 loyalty. It's going to bounce the Archon and draw.
So who did the endurance target?
Let's just say missed. Self missed.
Yeah.
You know, it's missed. It's game over. It's over.
Yeah. So I think we want the 3rd trigger. Put Grafton to 6 because you have 9 power on the battlefield.
Yep. And we get to trigger the Omnath once again. So a lot of mana floating.
Yeah. So Grafton goes to 6. We've got. I don't think there's much left in hand to do with this mana. I think his hand has a lot of lands.
Well, you can maybe hard cast an Endurance from hand thanks to the Forest and the floating from Omnath, and then he can exile opposing graveyard and or just put a lot more pressure on him.
Yeah, and just get another body down. So now we've got 12 power in play. So single removal spell is not enough.
Yep, and Archon might be enough, but maybe not.
Yeah. And Grafton once again has a hand with a bunch of counter spells in it that do nothing.
Yep, and with Jacob Fumich up 2-0, it's going to be a very important turn for Grafton. Let's see if he can come back. He's in dire straits.
He does have a creativity in hand. So if you can find another fetch land for the last Dwarven Mine, and he has hard evidence. So we can go hard evidence, turn the clue into an Archon, and then you sack either the Teferi or the Shardless Agent, and you go to 9, and you have 2 blockers. Yes, Crab coming up big.
Yeah, crab time. Waka waka. Ross is doing the hands. You can't see he's doing the clampy hands. Here it comes, another Indomitable Creativity. What a roller coaster of a game this one has been. Not only did we cast multiple Glimpse of Tomorrows in the previous turn, but we had that long Judge Call, and now we have another Indomitable Creativity for another Archon. Both decks just haymakers back and forth. Grafton digging for that Archon. Gets it no matter what. Finds it. And now Jacob Fumich can choose to sacrifice the Teferi. I might have done that instead, just to have that extra threat on the table. We'll see if he can find another Teferi or something similar to bounce the Archon, though. His hand looks like it's just a couple lands. Draw for Grafton off the Archon. No land for the turn.
Is that Ashiok?
Yep. Classic Ashiok.
Does he just bring an Ashiok against everyone?
Yeah, why not? All right.
So we've got a fetch.
Oh, big shout out to Doomwake with the rating party of 372 folks. Welcome to the channel. I'm Tandy, and we got Ross Merriam in the booth bringing you coverage here. The Ohio Valley MTG Invitational, hosted by Apex Gaming. We're in the semifinals right now. We got Jacob Fumich, the Glimpse of Tomorrow. We got Michael Grafton with the Grixis Creativity. We have one of the craziest games we've had on camera all day. Let's go.
Once again, trying to bait a block here with the Archon, because then you can use the mana from the Omnath to cast a Fury that you just drew off the top.
Yep. Can't attack with the... Well, actually, you know what he could have done? He actually could have went fetch, Fury, hit it for 4, attack. It actually forces a block, and then more damage is guaranteed through it. The difference is he's missing out on a little bit of damage, but he gets to keep Omnath around over Endurance, so maybe this is a better play.
I also maybe would have fetched, cast pre-combat, killed the Crab, and gotten in with everybody. You know, Archon then blocks Omnath, but then Grafton takes 6, goes to 3, and you've got a Fury on the battlefield. You got 3 creatures. You know, if the Archon attacks, Grafton goes back up to 6, but you just sack the Teferi.
Yeah. I would have liked to have just hardcast a Fury. A 3/3 double striker here is pretty powerful, and it's just the Archon's just going to attack like, you know, once or twice just to try to close the gap.
See a land there from Grafton. He's got a Tainted Indulgence in hand. Could dig for something, but 2 remands in hand, an
maybe
Archon. Maybe you can find a Persist. A Persist would be nice. Yeah, not a great hand.
All right,
so the Archon is attacking.
I've gotten word that Doomwake before the raid was also playing Creativity, so everybody's rooting for Michael. Let's go, Michael. Bring it back. Okay. Let's have a game 4.
Interesting that Jacob decides to leave the Teferi around and sack one of his Endurances. Now it doesn't have lethal damage on the battlefield anymore.
Well, if he draws another fetch land, he does have lethal because the trigger from Omnath can really get him there. I just think he should have maybe gone for the Fury last turn. I think just having another creature on the table, especially one that attacks for 6, just represents so much damage.
Like I said, I would have just Furied the crab and smashed in with everybody.
Yeah, maybe that would have been slightly better. Leaves you Dobbs. Then you just sack the fairy instead of a creature, and then you attack and kill him.
Yeah. Grafton would be at 6, and you'd have a Fury and 2 Endurances on this battlefield right now.
Yeah, perhaps a missequence. We'll see.
Now, Tainted Indulgence into Persist, Return, and Archon would be, devastating.
Yeah.
But are you beating that right now?
Yeah, true enough. True enough. All right. Well, it looks like we do have a Tainted Indulgence. We'll see if that's what he wants to go for. He's really tanking on it here, trying to figure out the best sequence. Doesn't want to just randomly lose something.
Another hard evidence in hand, or is that like a Spell Pierce kind of thing next to the Indulgence?
I don't know. Might be a subtlety, dude. I don't know. Might be an island. Can't tell.
Could even be a boat.
That's true. Yeah, although with how cool Grafton's deck looks, that can't just be a generic basic island, right?
There is one island in the deck.
Yeah, but it would be cool looking.
Yeah. Well, that swamp is a Guru swamp, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So
it wouldn't be a basic. Yeah, and I know what Guru Island looks like.
Yeah.
The thing is expansive.
Looks like we found a Dispute and a Blood Crypt, so 2 bricks.
Yep. Do we have the Persists? What's our hand looking like? Discards the Archon.
You do still have another turn because there's only 7 power there, as long as there's not a second fetch.
Yeah.
You can't Thoughtseize.
Yeah, Thoughtseize puts you into lethal range from just attacking.
Yeah, and the rest of your hand is all counter spells. So Thoughtseize is you lose.
Yeah, maybe we go for the Ashiok. That prevents fetches on the...
Yeah, so that'll actually stop Omnath triggers.
Yeah, and that means that you're not dead on the board.
Yeah.
I like it.
No, you have an Archon in your graveyard. No real reason to minus on yourself.
So we're going to fetch here in response. This is just going to gain some life.
I think I would just leave the Ashiok on 5, but maybe you just want to start milling them.
Everyone mills.
Yeah.
Always. I mean, what are they going to do? Attack Ashiok? Good. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you want to induce the attack, actually.
Yeah. Plus, you could just randomly mill all their good stuff, bro.
Yeah, what if we hit all the other glimpses? Or we could hit Colony Garden, Land, Cavern of Souls, Teferi.
Yeah, those were not good cards on the top, other than that Teferi.
Yeah, that's the last Teferi. There's only 2 of those in Fumich's sideboard, so...
Card drawn, another fetch land. Dead now, thanks to the... Oh, actually, no. We can go... Plus, we can go 4 Ashiok, 3 at face, and then we go fetch land, trigger Omnath, play the Fury. I think we should have done that last turn, but maybe we can make up for it here by doing it now.
Yeah.
Some life gained from the Omnath here. Omnath, such a powerful card. So hard to actually kill your opponent without taking out the Omnath first.
Now Grafton maybe potentially getting punished here for minusing on the Ashiok because you made it very easy to attack down.
Yep. 3 damage coming face, 4 going to Ashiok. Handful of useless counter spells. Ashiok down. We're going to go second main fetch, play this Fury, I hope. You got to put lethal pressure on him. You got to. Otherwise, you're just going to be in the exact same boat you were last turn. Yeah, looks like he sees it.
Yeah, doesn't need to get an untapped red source at all. Had it with the Omnath trigger and the stomping ground, so...
Might just be out of fetchable duels, I don't know.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff is shuffled back in, but some stuff got exiled with the Ashiok. Who knows?
True that. All right, mana from the Omnath allows for the Fury cast. 4 damage on the Archon, not enough to kill it. Fumich empty-handed.
Just a 5 mana, 3/3 double strike. Nice little limited common.
Now, an attack with Archon is just going to make him sacrifice the Teferi more than likely, and then a lethal attack back. So Grafton really needs something here, or else he's just dead to what's on the table. Finds, looks like Persist to me. No, it's a Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize that was there. I think it's Dwarven Mine.
Oh, that's a chump blocker. That might be enough to save.
So you go to 8, and then you chump block the Fury, take 7.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. But I think he needed to attack the Teferi. Although maybe this is a huge incentive to... Oh, wow. Heads up from Fumich.
Yeah.
Predicts the non-lethal. Yeah. Leaves the Teferi around. If he sacks the Teferi, Grafton actually doesn't die.
Yeah, Grafton needed to attack the Teferi there. Instead draws another useless counterspell. Now his hand is just a ton of useless disruption.
Yep, but he's not dead. Has the blocker.
But the blocker gets bounced by Teferi.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why you have to attack the Teferi. Make sure it was dead. Like, sure, he's going to sack it. You're not going to deal 6 damage, but who cares?
Yeah.
Like, once you stabilize with the Archon, you're going to win. And that was a land, you know, you'd have been at 1. You attack again. They sack, you know, one of their creatures. You'd have had to find something. But you would have had 2 more draws to find it.
Yeah. You have to imagine there's no removal spell either. Otherwise, it would have been cast on main phase.
Yeah.
You know. Looks like we're going to bounce a token. We're going to go for lethal here.
And it actually,
With
like,
attacks.
too much draw spells. You got a million counter spells, and the Teferi's gone. So you would have had a bunch of stuff covered and a couple
brutal.
draws to try to stabilize that battlefield. Find a persist. Find even a creativity. Turn my Archon into another Archon and get another trigger.
Yeah.
You know, would have been good enough. So I think a misstep there from Grafton, and it ends his tournament. That
Yeah.
was a 3-0 sweep from Jacob Fumich, and he is our first member of the finals.